I'm in Washington, D.C., where it's now legal to smoke weed, to test out their unique approach to legalization.
We're just on the side of the road and you're dumping weed out.
Mm-hmm. It's freedom.
This is what freedom looks like.
This is exactly 2 ounces. That is
limit?
the law. You're looking at the law.
Okay, so then how do I get it?
The law is that you can possess this much, but you can only give 1 ounce to someone at a time.
Okay, so here we go.
Here we go.
You're giving me an ounce of weed.
Yes.
All right, so then how do I get the 2nd ounce, right?
I can't give it to you, but I can give it to someone else.
How about our cameraman? All right, so now he has it. What can he do with it?
He can give it to anyone he wants.
Here we go. So now I have it.
Yes.
So I have 2 ounces of weed on me right now. So I can be anywhere I want except for public housing or federal land. And behind me right now, there's the Washington Monument, there's the National Mall, the White House is over there. If I were to step on federal land, this would be a felony. I would get a year in prison. It's in 4 bags, so maybe I would get intent to distribute. So the patchwork kind of system of legality in DC is like a little absurd. And I'm like standing right in front of a cop with 2 ounces of weed in 4 bags, and I feel nervous, but this is actually totally legal.
Though 23 U.S. states have now legalized marijuana in some form, the federal government still considers it an illegal and dangerous drug, which makes what happened in D.C., the home of the federal government, all the more astonishing.
Tonight, D.C. goes to pot because in just a few hours, recreational marijuana will be legal in this nation's capital.
On November 4th, 2014, the people of the District of Columbia voted to legalize recreational marijuana. Sounds like great news, but the actual laws turned out a little peculiar. Residents here can now legally carry around up to 2 ounces of weed, and they can smoke it at home. But they either have to grow that weed themselves or be gifted it. In DC, it's still a crime to buy or sell pot, which means no recreational dispensaries, no weed tourists, and no ganja carnival on the National Mall. With US citizens nearly evenly split over the prospect of full federal legalization, I've come to our nation's capital to find out whether DC's weed laws are a workable compromise or a half-baked mess.
You guys want some of this?
Yes, it's legal, right?
It's legal.
I met at parties celebrating marijuana legalization to meet Adam Eidinger, the businessman and activist who spearheaded the ballot initiative to legalize pot in DC.
Recreationally, like, how does one get weed?
The best way to get it is to ask someone, can I have some of your weed?
Okay, can I have some of your weed?
Yes, you can have some of my weed.
And so tell me about sort of the initiative that enabled you to do that legally here, and how did it start?
In 2011, Capitol Hemp store, the head shop that we own in Washington, D.C., was raided by the Metropolitan Police Department.
It was a despairing kind of experience. It was a citywide crackdown on selling, quote, drug paraphernalia, really pipes to smoke marijuana. And while we were selling them for tobacco use only, and we were complying with the letter of the law, they still alleged that it was for marijuana.
You need to get it out of here.
They took away everything they could take away, including our freedom. I mean, we went to jail as well. And that was the first time I realized we're looking at over 4,000 arrests a year in a small city. It was actually the marijuana arrest capital of the planet.
Wow.
And so I focused on changing the law in DC. We were able to get the seed money together to do a ballot initiative. We collected the signatures, had a big battle in the media, and we articulated it as a civil rights issue. It passed by 70% of the vote.
It's official. I think we just legalized it in D.C., people.
I want to dedicate it to all the people who are still sitting in jail right now for marijuana. You cannot buy this energy. It is the people standing up and saying they want change.
With the referendum passed, the regulation, sale, and taxation of marijuana was to be decided by the DC City Council. But that never happened. Conservative Congressman Jason Chaffetz of Utah and Andy Harris of Maryland managed to block it. Because DC isn't a state, Its purse strings are controlled by the federal government. Congressman Chaffetz and Harris used this control to block the DC Council from spending any money on meeting to discuss the regulation of marijuana. This left DC legalization half resolved. Though people are now allowed to smoke, own, and grow small amounts, there is no legal system for supply and distribution. No way for people to buy or sell it. So at a moment when marijuana millionaires are minting fortunes, the aspiring ganjapreneurs of Washington are now expected to give their weed away for free.
That's why you see people saying, like, would you like to buy a t-shirt? And they're like, yeah, well, my t-shirts are $50. Oh yeah, and in the tag there's a bud. And I think it's good to have people trying to create businesses where they're selling marijuana as hard as they can until we all find out what the threshold is. We're in this weird space where it's not supposed to be commercial. It's legalization without commercialization. That's the exciting new world we're in Washington, D.C.
All right, everybody, we want to thank everybody that put this on. We're so happy to have you out here. Take care of what we give you. Find a mentor and learn how to grow. Enjoy the laws that we have, and game on.
I've come to a massive marijuana seed giveaway being thrown by a hydroponics store, where aspiring pod growers have turned out in the hundreds to legally get their hands on free clones and seeds.
Our laws make it a blessing to be out here right now enjoying this good weather and get ready to be a part of this beautiful event here today. This time last year, I would not be comfortable in this situation.
What kind of seeds did you get?
Heavy duty fruity. Like Kim 91.
That sounds strong. Everyone's forced to kind of have this sharing economy. Hey, that's cool, right? Because you have lines of people, you know, you can give stuff away. There's sort of a certain kind of warmth of human connectivity almost like to that.
You know, I'm sure there is, but I just want you to really realize I'm only doing this for the money. I'm interested in driving people to my hydroponic shop, and I'm interested in selling more products.
Yeah, hydroponic business must be very good when a lot of people are starting to grow. In a sense, like, is this kind of a workaround, the way that the regulations have been written?
The federal government and the DC government has forced me to do this. I don't want to break any rules, but I want to make some money. So this is my only option.
Is to give stuff away.
I have to give it away for free. I gave approximately 4 to 5 seeds per person. Today, it's certainly more than 1,000 people at this point. So if things go well, it's going to be 7,500 heavy-duty fruity by Chem 91 seeds.
7,500 seeds, but that's amazing, right? Perhaps people who haven't grown before are sort of starting to grow.
That's right.
Brian isn't the only person trying to make money by hawking hydroponics gear to this throng of seed seekers. Longtime grower Chris Washburn hopes to teach people how to cultivate weed at home and sell them the equipment to do so through his company, Let's Grow DC.
We're in.
I joined him on one of his house calls.
Lisa.
Hey,
Awesome.
Chris, how are you? Come
Good.
on, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi.
I'm Krishna.
Nice to meet
Nice
you,
to meet
Lisa.
This is probably the easiest tent in their line to set up.
Does it go deep into it?
Yes, it does. There you go. That's it. You're better at this than I am.
I've done a few tents in my life
really?
through Girl Scouts.
There's sort of like a culture kind of growing here that's supporting what you're doing and kind of helping you along the way.
It's more like a family, I think. You have people that have been in it forever, guiding and leading all the first growers like myself, you know, and teaching us all the things that we need to know in order to get a successful harvest.
Right. And is this your bedroom?
It is.
So you're gonna have your sort of grow right next to your bed?
Yeah, so I can always watch it.
Why did you choose to do this in the first place?
You know, hopefully with them legalizing it to sell, you know, there'll be plenty of like business opportunities.
So like you're looking down the line to when maybe there are regulations in DC where you can actually sell weed.
Yeah. If this is a business, this is a way that I can support myself, provide for my family, and, you know, have a great life and enjoy myself while I'm doing it.
Well, I look forward to returning one day, maybe smoking your weed.
Oh, yeah. Edibles, everything.
All right, Lisa, here is your new freshly built grow tent. And just to give you a little taste and a little bit of an example, I brought over some pot from one of our other growers in our network.
While the laws here only allow for non-profit weed, everyone I've met so far is focused on making money one way or the other. I wanted to know how DC's illegal dealers, the city's original pot capitalists, are adapting to the greener pastures of semi-legal weed. I'm riding with DC Detective Greg Pemberton to find out what impact this booming marijuana market is having on the streets.
Right now we're in southeast Anacostia. We're actually entering Berry Farms, which is a pretty notorious neighborhood. And we do have a lot of crimes and a lot of narcotics. This is one of these areas where you're gonna pull up and somebody's gonna approach your vehicle and they're gonna say, what do you want? And crack cocaine, PCP, marijuana, heroin, somebody's gonna get it for you.
Like, what is the kind of general attitude of legalization from a cops perspective?
Ultimately, at the end of the day, we're here to enforce the laws that are put on the books. We don't make the laws, we just enforce them. And I haven't heard a lot of officers complain about the fact that marijuana is legal now. The problem is that here in the district, while it's legal to possess marijuana and smoke marijuana, it is still illegal to buy and sell.
Right.
When you don't create some kind of venue for these people to go purchase the marijuana, you're emboldening people out here on the corner that are selling drugs. And that's where the majority of police officers' problems come from. They don't come from some guy smoking weed in his house. Our problems come from drug dealers who protect their trade with violence and guns. You can't legalize one side of this operation because these drugs don't come from nowhere. They come from somewhere.
Are there moments where it kind of feels like a brave new world, where you find someone and they have a bunch of weed and they have like all the telltale signs that like they're doing something illegal, but you have no means to sort of be like, hey, you're doing this illegally?
Yeah, it's legal to have up to 2 ounces. You know, when you run into somebody that has, 30, 40 bags of marijuana in his pocket, and the other pocket, full of 5s and singles, I don't think it takes a detective to figure out that this guy's probably selling narcotics.
Right.
But the way that the laws have been rewritten now, there's really not much we can do in that circumstance. And so we sort of have to just send those people on their way.
It seems kind of ridiculous, right? That's like a drug dealer's paradise in that way.
Well, when it comes to marijuana, that's for sure.
Since the legalization happened in DC, like, has it changed? Have you felt like there's a different atmosphere?
I felt way more comfortable, walking around with weed on me. Because before, the cops would harass people like me, pat them down and find weed on them.
So, like, why do you feel like you have to still sort of hide your identity when you're talking to me?
It's two sides to the game. I mean, people are still getting robbed for weed because money's involved. And if people were to know what I do or how much I make, then I'm at risk for getting robbed or something like that.
So tell me how you actually sell people weed when that's still illegal.
I came up with this idea, to just get on Craigslist, since I use Craigslist for everything else, to just post weed. Best medical marijuana in DC. And then I'll put up the little tree emoji.
Because it's trees.
Exactly. And then the price, I'll say $60.
So if you're putting a price down, does that suggest that you're actually selling it?
Price suggests what I charge for my time. My time is valuable. So anytime I meet with somebody, it's gonna be for at least $60. Nothing less.
They're paying you for the service.
They're paying me for my time and for my gas.
For your gas, right?
This isn't a scam. 100% legit.
That's it.
That's it.
Today there was like, what, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So there are 11 ads for this already.
Yeah, I'm not the only one on here doing this. There are a lot of people, they see the same opportunity I do. People will have me meet them wherever I come to their house if they're comfortable with it. I'll meet them at their job. And these are everyday people, from the most gangster guy to the politician. I've sold to high school students, all the way up to middle-aged white women. I've learned literally everybody smokes weed. What's good, bro? Everything good? Yo, you gotta check out this fucking Blue Dream, son. This shit's fire. Get a shipment in from Cali. Let's say it's a pound. I might put 3/4 pounds, 3 QPs, 3 quaps. Really good. But put this together. I might separate those to give to people I know who sell. Yeah. Appreciate it. So holler at me next week when you done.
You know how it is, man.
Yes, sir.
Did you sell weed before it was legal?
Or is it something you started because the risk was lessened?
I saw weed before it was legal, but I feel like right now is the perfect time because DC's in a real gray area. People can't necessarily go to a store and buy it just yet. The profit margin is ridiculous. Business is actually booming right now.
The lack of legal options to buy weed has emboldened the black market in DC, as dealers exploit the loophole that allows them to carry 2 ounces of weed. But in a backwards kind of way, maybe these half-formed laws actually represent a workable compromise for a country divided over legalization. Sure, there aren't any recreational dispensaries, but there's Craigslist. So people can get weed if they want it, and almost no one goes to jail. To understand how DC's laws could work on a national scale, I'm headed to the Netherlands, where marijuana culture has thrived in the loopholes of half-formed policy for 4 decades.
I've come to Amsterdam, which is the capital of the Netherlands, but has also sort of been the historic capital of weed smoking in the Western world. In 1976, the Dutch government decriminalized cannabis consumption, and ever since, people have come here from around the world to smoke in the many coffee shops that line the streets. So before California, before Colorado, before DC, this has been sort of cannabis central. People are psyched to be smoking in Amsterdam. Hey.
Hey, how are you?
How you guys doing?
Well, good, thank you, buddy.
What do you have?
What do you feel like having? Sativas, indicas, what do you fancy?
I think a sativa.
We have the lemon, the silver, the Arians, amnesia case.
Let's do the super lemon.
1 gram?
Yeah. What's this gonna make me feel like?
This is a strong high effect. It's a sativa dominant plant, which means mostly high, mostly uplifting, but has a lot of body effect as well. So it's a strong weed.
All right.
Thank you. Cheers.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Unlike DC, coffee shops like this one are allowed to operate because of a Dutch drug policy called tolerance, aimed at keeping drug users safe. While weed can be sold here on a retail level, astonishingly, it's still illegal to buy or sell weed on a wholesale level, just like DC. So for big, successful coffee shops that sell thousands of joints a night, how do they keep their inventory stocked if it's still illegal? To find out, I've come to meet with Michael Veling, a longtime coffee shop owner.
You're able to have this awesome place. You can sell weed to people. You can have weed here to sell them.
Yeah.
Like, what are the sort of nuts and bolts of the regulations?
Well, it's still illegal, but nowadays we can actually sell it over the counter.
Mhm.
Because the law is not enforced as long as we stick to certain rules. And they include no more than a pound on the premises in stock.
You can have a pound of weed here.
500 grams.
500 grams?
It's a metric system here.
Right. So you have 500 grams. Do you go through more than that in a day?
Yes. If one particular item is getting short, there's a phone call and some extra supply is brought in. But at all times we have to make sure that there's no more than 500 grams in the house.
How do you get the weed in the door? Like, is it legal to have 500 grams on you on the street, or like?
No. From the moment I call someone to supply me, that person is running an extraordinary high risk of getting caught out there. As soon as he's over the threshold, he's fine.
Really? It's like totally fine from prosecution?
Yes.
So there's like a magic line right at the door right there.
Well, no, it's actually there.
It's not magic, it's a real line.
While guys like me can laugh the night away on some giggle kush, making guys like Veling a ton of legal cash,
I'm really stoned.
it's all down to a shadow army of workers to keep the supply chain turning. I've come to meet a weed courier to see how they get around the 500-gram coffee shop limit.
Are you Krishna?
Yeah.
Let's go, man.
You the guy?
Let's go, yeah. Let's go.
How much weed is this, actually?
This is 300 grams here. So this is how it comes from the grower. Then here at this pot, it will get packed in smaller amounts, like this. It has to come somewhere where it will get divided, sorted out before it goes to a coffee shop.
It's like this is like the stash house, the cut-up room. You know what I mean? This does not feel like a legal enterprise.
Before it comes into the coffee shop is not legal. So you have to do everything in secret.
And how would you describe like your role? Like what would you say, you do?
I'm a middleman. So
And,
this process goes on a lot.
And like what's crazy to think about is just like there's so many coffee shops in Amsterdam. There's so many coffee shops in the Netherlands, right?
Every time that weed has to come in a coffee shop, there's a part of the supply chain that doesn't make sense at all. Coffee shops can't exist without that illegal part.
While the stash house is a way station in the pot supply chain, I'm headed to its source, a suburban home in the outskirts of Amsterdam.
Paradise.
Wow. How much weed is actually grown in something like this?
Like a gram per watt. So if this is 1,000 to 400, 1,800 grams.
So there's 1,800 grams of weed in here. And where is all this weed going?
To the coffee shop.
What would happen if the cops found this place?
What would happen if the cops found us at this moment?
Yeah.
We got living plants here, proper professional setup. But yeah, we would go to prison for it.
So you would get sent to prison for growing this weed.
Yeah,
but then if you sold it at a coffee shop, it's totally fine.
Exactly. In the beginning, the growers weren't the focus of the government to harass, and now it's going backwards. Everyone that grows is a target. So when it's snowing, for example, there are situations with growers that can't get their air out in the right way. The room gets too hot, so the snow on their roofs will start melting.
The cops will know.
Yeah, it's very easy to spot that.
So then the coffee shop owner gets to flip it at a really high profit, but he has none of the risk involved.
Exactly.
And you could go to jail for this.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make any sense.
Like DC, the wholesale cultivation of marijuana is illegal in the Netherlands. Though the government here has traditionally turned a blind eye to growers, they may now be tightening the noose. I've come to meet Rutger Jan Hebben, a marijuana expert and lobbyist, to find out whether marijuana tolerance in the Netherlands may be coming to an end. Was it a mistake for the Dutch not to regulate the supply side of the supply chain when it first sort of not legalized but permitted cannabis use?
Yes. It's crazy if you on one hand allowed to sell and smoke and not allowed to grow it. I mean, it's about selling cookies but not allowing to bake the cookies. Yeah, it's the same thing.
Right.
And what we have seen since the early 2000s, that the policy in the Netherlands became much more repressive. What the government started doing was going after the small-time growers, which were for a great part supplying the coffee shops. Also, then the government started to hand out leaflets to its citizens. For instance, in the city of Utrecht, they spread from house to house these folders, actually saying, if your neighbor is growing weed, please report him to the authorities.
Really?
I mean, that's ridiculous. They even went further. The energy companies, they distributed these cards. They call this, you need to scratch this, and then you can smell the smell of weed.
Really?
And if you smell weed, then please report it to the police, because hey, your neighbor might be growing weed, and that's of course dangerous to grow weed in your backyard.
So it's sort of like if you smell something, say something.
Yeah, that's What we saw then is that these small-time growers stopped growing, and more organized crime groups took over the growing by going after the good guys. The bad guys got a lot of room to maneuver. They actually force the coffee shop owners to do business with criminals.
Since the 70s, the Dutch policy of tolerance towards weed has allowed pot growers to operate relatively freely, even though what they were doing was technically illegal. But after the attacks of 9/11, this began to change, as fear of terrorism led Dutch voters to elect conservative politicians who also happened to hold anti-drug views. Once conservatives took power, the tolerance policy took a back seat to law and order reforms, which included going after low-hanging fruit. the small-scale growers who supplied the coffee shops.
So, what are these prosecutions actually doing?
People are being found guilty because it's illegal to grow.
Right.
But he's not punishing them. So they're not actually going to jail at the moment. It gives the prosecution office a title to come after your money. Because they say, look, you've been growing for so many years, so many plants, and they make a calculation, so you've earned so and so much money, and that's money that you've gained illegally, so we're gonna get it from you. So then in the end, these people find themselves with penalties of 900,000 to €1 million to pay.
Right. But that's sort of just like a retrograde taxation.
Yeah, the government has created a monster.
I'm in the Dutch countryside to visit Duda de Jong, a marijuana farmer who's built his life within the loophole of tolerated yet illegal weed growing. He's currently facing criminal charges after his weed farm was busted and may be forced to pay €233,000, equivalent to roughly $250,000, as restitution for his years of illegal growing.
You live pretty far away from like big cities and stuff. This is...
Yeah, I couldn't go any further.
You couldn't get any further away?
Not in Holland. We don't have any gas here.
Uh-huh.
So we have to chop wood.
All right, well, I'll step back. Well, okay, 1 for 1. So how long have you been living out here?
45 years.
45 years?
45 years.
So 45 years of chopping wood like this, you've got a big head start on me.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. I can't get through it.
You do this, huh?
Right.
Chop. And I do this.
Boom.
Hit him.
Yeah. Oh, it feels good when you really get it.
It makes progress, eh? Yes.
After you burn the wood, what do you do with all the ashes?
The ashes we put on the compost belt.
Yeah, compost.
Throw it by the plants.
Oh, wow.
They're beautiful, huh?
Look at how big they are. So these are probably like 12, 13 feet tall.
Smells good, huh?
Yeah, it smells great.
Yeah, yum.
Yum? Did you say yum?
I say yum, yeah, yum, yeah, like it.
Duda, tell me, like, what is it that you love about growing weed?
I'm a gardener. I always like to work in the ground.
And when did you know that that's what you wanted to do?
When I was small, about 5, 6 years, I had a little garden. The neighbor boy, he told me, no, when you put those seeds in the ground, you get new plants. And I said, whoa, and I found it amazing.
And so when did you first try marijuana? And when was it something that you knew that you wanted to pursue?
I was about 19. I had to laugh a lot. That was the first time that the cannabis worked on.
Right.
And the music, the Pink Floyd, Just an Airplane,
right.
Led Zeppelin. I found it an extra dimension when I was high on cannabis. Before I was caught, I had 10, 14 kinds of varieties because I like to experiment with the plants.
Right. And how many plants did you have before you got caught?
They found 289.
There was a time where you were growing almost 300 plants. Yeah. Weren't you afraid that you were going to get caught? I mean, it's definitely illegal.
I told you in the early days, when they came at your place for something else and they saw your plants, they let the plants stay.
But now they're punishing you.
Yeah.
Duda's love of growing weed has provided him with a regular income over his 45 years here, which he has plowed into transforming his barn into a family home.
These are my children when they were small. She is 35 and he is 31 and she is 33.
Wow.
These are all three smart children. They say always when people who smoke cannabis, they have dumb children
right.
because they sit the whole day on the couch. But that is not so it goes.
Yeah, I hope not. So tell me about the house. You said you've lived here for 45 years.
Yeah.
How old is the house?
More than 100 years.
Wow.
And before that, we had only this room with 3 children. The cows, they walked through the house. There was no electricity, no gas, no water. So we hold the water by the neighbors. And so, yeah, it was a very...
rustic?
We became from a civilization with everything. Mm-hmm. We go back to nature when we lived here. So,
right.
But we had to build everything. When you live in a house in a city, you can easily move on to another house. That's different than when you live here. This is your life.
Why is it that you might have your house taken away?
No, because they have a fail, a boete, from 233,000 euro.
So they're fining you 230,000 euros?
Yeah, exactly. Then they sell your house and then they have the money for the fine. We have to go to a higher court. So we fight against that verdict.
So you're appealing, essentially?
Yeah, appealing, exactly. That's the word.
You have a family that you raised in this house.
Yeah.
What do they think of, like, you continuously sort of growing weed, you getting arrested for it, your weed getting taken?
I think they're proud and that you stand for something, for freedom. On the other side, the punishment, that's hard for them, of course. That they will take the house, or try to take the house.
So what would that mean to you if they took away your house?
That's a horror scenario.
With Duda now facing the prospect of losing his family home if he fails in court, I wanted to know how the national government of the Netherlands could sanction such an illogical system. If local farmers like Duda don't supply the coffee shops, where do they think the weed's gonna come from? To understand the thinking behind the government crackdown, I've traveled to The Hague to speak with a rising star in the Netherlands' conservative ruling party, Voort van Oesten.
I understand that, marijuana is illegal in the Netherlands. However, it's sold openly in coffee shops. People smoke it, people come here. It's part of the culture. If tolerance is towards the end user, but the supply chain itself isn't regulated or legalized, how is that a coherent system?
Kijk, het gedoogbeleid zoals we dat in Nederland kennen, maakt dat iedereen die hier woont, die kan een joint roken. Maar dat hoeft wat mij betreft niet te betekenen over moet gaan tot regulering van de teelt met alle bezwaren die ik daar op dit ogenblik tegen zie. Nou, in de eerste plaats stel ik vast dat er vaak een behoorlijke verwevenheid is met hele zware georganiseerde criminaliteit. Die nogal doorwerkt in de maatschappij. Dat is gewoon riskant, die moet je aanpakken. En wat ik echt niet wil, is dat Nederland de drugsexporteur van Europa zou gaan worden.
So let's focus on sort of organized crime. Do you know what the statistics are? Like how much of the weed that's grown in the Netherlands is actually exported? Er
zijn allerlei verschillende rapporten over. En de percentages waar je dan over spreekt, die variëren ook nog wel wat. Ik hoor ook wel percentages van 80%. Dat vind ik heel fors. En ik vind dat je daartegen moet optreden.
Is that really the case? I mean, I think there are other studies that say like 36%, all the way up to 96%. It's sort of like you don't know because you don't keep track of what happens in the black market.
Die zitten in die sfeer van georganiseerde criminaliteit. Die zitten in de risico's dat Nederland kan verworden tot de drugsexporteur van Europa. En ik wil dat echt niet laten gebeuren.
If the goal is to make sure that a Dutch citizen can smoke a joint, why don't you regulate where that joint comes from?
Ja, ik probeer u ook uit te leggen welke redenen voor mij op dit ogenblik zeker doorslaggevend zijn. Dat is die verwevenheid met de georganiseerde criminaliteit.
If you want to get rid of organized crime, like you make it not a crime anymore, because that way you can regulate it, tax it, understand it entirely. The growers who are being sort of targeted, or for a large part, they're small independent growers who are doing small-scale operations. They're easy targets. You guys can get them. That makes people who are growing it on larger scales from organized crime organizations even more empowered.
Ik heb niet it's not another point, but perhaps because otherwise I'm repeating myself continuously, which might not be very interesting for you.
You're right. You're saying the same thing over and over again, and I get it.
You're asking me the same thing over and over again.
It's true. It's true. I am asking you the same thing over, because at the end of the day, like, it's trying to understand how incoherence can be a defensible position.
Nee, het is een ingewikkeld systeem. En zomaar te zeggen, nou ja, dan moet het argument maar zijn dat je alles gaat reguleren, zodat je geen georganiseerde criminaliteit meer zou hebben, daar geloof ik eerlijk gezegd helemaal niks van. Want die georganiseerde criminaliteit is er nu eenmaal, daar kun je de ogen niet voor sluiten en die moeten we aanpakken. Maar ik kan het niet mooier maken, het is niet anders.
Waarvoor moet ik vandaag terecht staan? Dit is een hoger beroep tegen... Hey, Jan. Hoi, kerel. Hey. Een hoop mensen met hem meegebracht? Ja, dat lijkt er wel op. Hè. Een hoop medestanders natuurlijk die allemaal zat zijn dat we dit beleid hebben. Ja, dank u wel.
Je hoopt je op een principiële uitspraak?
Ja, daar hoop ik zonder meer op. In feite, zo'n meester hebben we natuurlijk ook vrijsput.
But you're shaking a little bit.
Yeah, from the emotion. I hope it will be a turning point, this process, so it can go every way.
You don't know.
Good luck.
Ja, gaat u zitten hoor. Goed, meneer de Jong, u weet waarom u hier bent.
Ja.
Het gaat om de behandeling van uw strafzaak. Die zaak is bij de rechtbank aan de orde geweest. Men heeft u veroordeeld. U hebt hoger beroep ingezet.
Ja.
U hebt nooit ontkend. U hebt wel hennep gekweekt.
Ja, zeker. Ik ben een liefhebber.
Nee, dat betwist u niet.
Nee.
Daar is een verklaring over wil afleggen. Luisteren we daar met buitengewoon veel interesse naar. Aan u het woord.
En als ik het diplomatiek moet verwoorden, dan zou ik zeggen... het OM heeft zich schromelijk vergist. Waarom sta ik hier terecht voor het op duurzame wijze telen van biologische wiet... terwijl op hetzelfde moment in Leeuwarden, in 12 coffeeshops wiet... Kan iemand mij vertellen waar de wiet vandaan komt? Komt wiet uit de lucht vallen? De staat lokt met haar beleid wel verkopen, niet verbouwen... en het heffen van belasting op illegaal geteelde waar... wat wettelijk verboden is, de teelt zelf uit. Ik vind het crimineel en contraproductief om zo'n cannabistragedie... die ten koste gaat van de samenleving in stand te houden. De intensivering van de repressie is evenredig met de ontwikkeling van het criminele niveau. Dankzij justitie zijn het voor hen gouden tijden en dat willen ze het liefst zo houden. Ik pleit voor het opheffen van het respectloze verbod. De wiet verliest dan zijn extreme waarde en daarmee zal tegelijkertijd de criminaliteit verdwijnen. En wat zou het niet geweldig zijn als deze raadskamer te Leeuwarden hier een constructieve glansrol in zou gaan vervullen. Tevens wil ik hier vermelden dat ik mij totaal niet schuldig voel. Integendeel. Ik vraag me ondertussen wel vertwijfeld af in wat voor onverdraagzaam land ik in godsnaam ben beland. Internationaal treedt alom een liberalisering op. Uruguay, Jamaica, Tsjechië, Spanje, Portugal. In Amerika zijn 5 staten overgegaan tot legalisering en wordt in 23 staten op medicinale basis wiet verkocht. Nederland, wat eerst een gidsland was, hobbelt nu achteraan. Ik vind het ronduit beschamend dat als de regels niet corresponderen met de realiteit, dan zullen de regels aangepast moeten worden en niet andersom. Laten we ons gezamenlijk inzetten voor een vredelievende en tolerante samenleving, waarin op basis van wederzijds respect de dialoog voor een maximaal betrokken samenleving centraal staat en het recht op zelfbeschikking wordt gerespecteerd.
Daar houden we het dan bij voor vandaag. Dan sluit ik het onderzoek. Wij gaan over de zaak nadenken.
Ja.
Dat doen we altijd 14 dagen over, zoals u weet, wellicht.
Ja, graag gedaan.
While Duda's fate rests in the hands of the judges, the new pressure on growers is symptomatic of a broader shift against weed in the Netherlands. The incoherent laws of the country give anti-weed officials the tools to chip away at the system. Even coffee shops, so central to the Netherlands' identity, are now coming under attack, with local mayors closing around 40 coffee shops since 2012. Had the Netherlands fully regulated the sale of marijuana all those years ago, would the situation be like this today? And by the same turn, will Washington, D.C.'s inability to pass full regulation open it up to the kind of regression that I'm seeing here? I've come back to D.C. to attend a secret party at a weed speakeasy, to ask Adam Eidinger and his business partner Alan about the future of weed in the capital.
I just want to say it's wonderful to see everybody here together using cannabis in this beautiful space. Don't let anyone tell you that next year the Republicans are coming, they're going to shut us all down. It's quite the opposite. They will not be coming to shut us down. We're going to be opening it up, all right?
Hell
so
yeah.
2016, a lot to look for.
Are there any lessons from Amsterdam that you see kind of reenacting itself here in DC?
I'd have to say the one thing that is the exact same is kind of the government accountability. They're unsure of themselves. They don't know what move to make. There's still a lot of gray areas.
Well, that's the sort of scary thing, right? Is that they could retrench. I mean, in the same way that Holland is becoming kind of less progressive on this stuff, could that happen in DC?
Yes, we're constantly worried about the feds. I think it can happen anywhere in America if the federal government chooses to flip the switch on us. Absolutely. We're going to fight always, but it could go south real quick. I mean, because everything is illegal what we're doing now.
Which is like something people say a lot, but like being in DC, that kind of feels like a lot more pressing in a sense, right? If this is happening right at the back door.
We're in their front yard. We're not in their backyard.
Right.
So, yeah, it's very concerning. We're going to have problems with the cannabis industry all over the world until governments actually take a real interest in it and regulate it.
I want to thank you guys so much for coming out. Adam, do you want to light that, Jay?
DC is this kind of pot paradise, sure. This great culture is kind of blooming there, but all that stuff is kind of a house of cards and could fall over. If DC is going to learn anything from Amsterdam, it's that half-baked regulatory solutions can leave people vulnerable to sort of the shifting ideas of whatever government's in power at the time. But the scary thing is that vulnerability extends beyond just DC to the entire United States. Until the government goes further than just tolerating each state's weed laws and legalizes marijuana on a federal level, all the gains that have been made nationally could be rolled back. If a conservative government took office today, they could bring back full marijuana prohibition with the stroke of a pen. Luckily, the American people have control over this. If you think marijuana's medical benefits should be studied,
I can finally give her what she needs.
Then push lawmakers to remove marijuana from the list of Schedule I drugs. If you want the billions of dollars being fed into the illicit market to be returned to the community,
this is people who are just making a simple living, which is like the American dream.
Then support politicians who want to legalize and tax the marijuana industry. If making sure people don't go to prison for pot is important to you,
Let the freedom bring Heavenly Father through all jailhouses, Heavenly Father.
then exercise your power as a citizen and vote. And if after all this you still think that pot is the devil's weed, that's fine. No judgment. Just don't harsh my mellow.